There's a silent hour in every man's life where something imperceptible begins to crack within him. It doesn't shatter with noise. It doesn't demand attention. It begins softly, invisibly, but grows like pressure beneath the surface. It starts when he unknowingly hands over the reins of his self-worth to someone else, and too often, that someone is a woman. Carl Jung never accused women of being broken men. He didn't reduce them to flawed versions of masculinity. What he highlighted was more dangerous: the projection, the dreamlike illusion men cast upon women when they fail to see them as they truly are, and instead see only what they desperately wish her to be. Each of us carries a shadow, Jung said, a hidden force we repress, deny, or ignore. For many men, this shadow lurks behind their reverence of the feminine. The more hollow he feels inside, the more sacred he makes her. The more he runs from his own disarray, the more he clings to her serenity, her beauty, her supposed ability to redeem him. But salvation was never hers to give. From the time he's a child, he's fed an illusion that somewhere out there is a woman who will complete him. She will love him without condition, fix his broken pieces, and accept his wounds without question. Stories, songs, fairy tales, all whisper the same message. She is the reward, the end of the quest, the soul's missing half. And so he sets out to find her before he even finds himself. Jung named this projection the Anima, the internal image of the feminine that lives inside the male psyche. Left unexamined, it takes over. He doesn't fall for her, he falls for his fantasy. And because fantasy is flawless, the real woman always falls short. Not because she's flawed, but because she's real. This is not her fault. It's his blindness. While he daydreams, she observes. While he devotes himself, she tests his grounding. While he offers up his identity, she weighs his emotional independence. And when she senses he is not rooted, she doesn't stay, not to punish, not to manipulate, but to protect herself. A woman isn't attracted to dependence disguised as devotion. She pulls away from a man who dissolves himself to please her, because instinctually she knows, if he cannot anchor himself, he will never hold space for her. But he doesn't see it this way. He sees betrayal. He sees abandonment. He gave her everything, his time, his love, his soul, and she left. Or worse, she remained and slowly vanished. He's left decoding silences, chasing affirmations, begging for affection in a language he was never taught. And this is when he begins to fade, not physically, but in spirit. He stops asking real questions. He stops building his core. His life becomes a reflection, and she is the only image that matters. He trades his integrity for attention, his path for her presence. And when she leaves, as she often will, he is left with nothing, not even himself. This isn't love, it's dependence. And dependence is the erosion of masculinity. Jung issued a warning. A man who fails to integrate his shadow becomes its servant. He will seek validation through women, approval in their glances, meaning through their presence. And every time he is not chosen, he will fall, not because of her rejection, but because he never chose himself first. A woman cannot complete you. She was never supposed to. Her role is not to sculpt your identity, but to respond to it. Not to craft your purpose, but to test if you found one. Not to carry you, but to see if you can carry yourself. And if you can't, she will leave. She will grow distant, not with arguments, but with withdrawal, not with confrontation, but with silence. You'll respond with more flowers, more words, more sacrifice. You'll think it's romance, but you're simply becoming invisible. A man who sees his salvation in a woman will always feel betrayed. Not because she deceived him, but because he deceived himself. He didn't fall in love with her. He fell in love with an idea, a projection, a story that made him feel whole. And when the story fell apart, so did he. But this shattering, it's holy. It's the dismantling of delusion. The end of the boy who thought he needed to be loved to be worthy. And from that rubble, the real man can rise. Not with anger, not with bitterness, but with vision. Because when you stop chasing the woman who never existed, you begin to find the man who always did. Jung once said the greatest burden a child carries is the unlived life of their parents. But for many men, this burden mutates. It becomes the unlived life inside themselves. What takes its place is what Jung called Anima, the ideal woman created by the psyche. Not a real person, but an archetype. A fantasy fed since boyhood, she will soothe his chaos, organize his pain, offer peace to his torment. He becomes not a man, but a seeker of her, a believer in her redemption, a worshipper of the unknown feminine. But it costs him, because when he projects Anima onto a living, breathing woman, he can no longer see her clearly. He sees only a screen, a canvas, a mirror for his unmet needs. He searches for the mother he never bonded with, the healer of his wounds, the goddess to anchor his drifting soul. And so the trap is sprung. He mistakes need for love, dependency for depth, devotion for disappearance. He equates submission with connection. He confuses emotional openness with emotional collapse. Anima is powerful. She is divine, sacred, and illusory. And unless he integrates her, she will dominate him. You'll know him by his actions. He chases, he sacrifices, he apologizes for things he didn't do. He reshapes himself around her moods, her preferences, her insecurities. He calls it empathy. But he's erasing himself, slowly, painfully, tragically. Jung never told men to shun women. He urged them to stop demanding women become their healers. To project Anima or Anima onto a partner is to place on her the burden of perfection. She must be caring but not cloying, sensual but faithful, mysterious but transparent, soft but decisive. It's a trap, a guarantee of disappointment. And when she inevitably falters, not because she's cruel but because she's human, the man collapses, not due to her failure, but because the fantasy died. And the fantasy was all he ever held. What if she wasn't the answer? What if she was the mirror? What if she didn't destroy him? She revealed the cracks he already carried. Jung's work calls men inward, to stop chasing, to stop projecting, to confront the anima, the mother wound, the shadow, the dependency. Only then can he see a woman as she truly is, not a savior, but a sovereign being. Let go of the myth. She won't complete you. She was never meant to. She may walk beside you, inspire you, but she cannot give you a direction. If you ask her to, she will resist you. Not because she's cruel, because she's conscious. A woman doesn't want to mother you. She wants to trust your presence, to rest in your rootedness. The man who can hold his own emotional weight, that's the man who attracts. We're told vulnerability is strength, and it is. But Jung reminds us, real integration doesn't mean emotional exposure to gain love. It means diving into yourself so that love no longer determines your identity. When this happens, something changes. The thirst for validation is replaced by the calm of wholeness. And wholeness is magnetic, not because it plays games, but because it stands firm, even when no one's watching. This is the individuation process, the journey not to be a lover, a protector, a savior, but to be oneself. A man at peace with his inner world, a man who no longer needs noise to feel seen. Presence is not as seductive as fantasy, but fantasy collapses under pressure. Fantasy runs when life becomes difficult. Only reality holds. If you're confused by her silence, shaken by her distance, obsessed with her affection, you are not in love. You are in projection. Jung would say you are possessed. And the way out is not through her. It's through you. The chaos you feel is not hers to fix. It's yours to understand. The loneliness you blame on women is really your disconnection from self. Jung didn't preach emotional shutdown. He preached integration, the capacity to hold both strength and sensitivity, to feel deeply but remain grounded, to love fully but not lose identity. That's the reclamation modern men must make. Not dominance, but depth. A man who integrates his anima no longer worships her. He loves her, but from solid ground. He can walk away when disrespected, not in anger, but in clarity. He no longer begs for affection. He offers presence. This man no longer lives to be seen. He lives to see. He no longer craves to be chosen. He has already chosen himself. And he realizes she was never the enemy. She was the test, not of worth, but of readiness. That moment, that invisible second where a man silences his truth to keep her interest, that's when he starts to disappear. Jung would call it the triumph of persona over self, the mask we wear to survive. When the mask becomes identity, truth dies. He doesn't love her. He bargains with his soul. He gives up his calling for her comfort, trades his truth for her approval. But she was never meant to carry him. She was meant to reflect him. And when she reflects confusion, fragility, absence, she does not feel safe, not because he's aggressive, but because he's absent. And no woman can rest in the arms of a man who isn't fully present within himself. So when she pulls away, it's not punishment, it's response. He demanded acceptance before accepting himself, demanded love before loving his depth, expected her to hold what he never learned to carry. That's not betrayal, that's a mirror. Until you make the unconscious conscious, Jung says, it will rule your life, and you will call it fate. Modern men call it heartbreak, but it's really the consequence of outsourcing self-worth. So what does he do? First, he doesn't blame her. That's the boy's reflex. The man sees clearly she didn't leave him. She left the absence of him. Second, he stops chasing. Not just her, but the lie, the illusion, the belief that love will fix what self-abandonment created. Third, he turns inward. He begins the work. Shadow, integration, individuation. He meets the wounded parts he once outsourced and welcomes them home. It's not easy. It's fire. But from that fire, something whole is forged. He remembers the times he went silent to avoid conflict, the truths he avoided, the passions he buried, and most painfully, he sees that he was never truly present, not with her, not with himself, only with the persona. And sometimes that's when she leaves, not because he was bad, but because he wasn't real. Roles don't build relationships, they build cages, and sooner or later, the soul rebels. A woman isn't looking for perfection. She's looking for presence, for the man who isn't performing, but standing, seeing, choosing. So if you've lost her and you're left in silence, use it. Let it strip you down. Let it reveal you. Because the truth Jung hinted at, quietly but clearly, was this. It was never about her. It was about you. She didn't destroy you. She revealed you, showed you where you traded spine for smiles, intuition for opinions, direction for distraction. This isn't about blaming her. It's about reclaiming you. Manhood isn't born in comfort. It's born in confrontation, not of her, of self. And when you've met yourself fully, when you've retrieved your voice, your path, your soul, you become untouchable, not invulnerable, but whole. And when she meets you again, you're no longer seeking, you're seeing. You no longer vanish to gain affection. You remain. You stay with yourself. This is wholeness. This is presence. This is what the world needs more of. So let them wonder where you went. Let her wonder who you've become. You're not a shadow begging to be seen. You're the fire that no longer flickers for attention. You burn on your own, and that is unforgettable. See you on the other side.